Is Putin a legitimate ruler? Undoubtedly, every ruler strives to be perceived as legitimate. For power to be legitimate, it must be recognized as lawful, fair and acceptable, not only by the country's citizens, but also by state institutions and international community. Without it, implementing decisions domestically and achieving recognition on the global stage become challenging. At first glance, Putin appears to face no issues with legitimacy. He consistently emphasizes and demonstrates this perception. Within Russia, there are no widespread protests. Opinion polls consistently show his approval ratings are high, and hundreds of thousands of citizens have sacrificed their lives in the war he initiated. State institutions operate in unison with him, while opposition is virtually non-existent. Internationally, Putin engages with prominent world leaders, including US President Donald Trump. This creates the image of a legitimate ruler supported by a broad domestic backing and recognized by other states. Let us examine whether this image aligns with reality and why maintaining this perception is so crucial for Putin. Let's start with a simple question about the ruler who has led Russia for 26 years. Does the duration of a leader's rule prove legitimacy? The short answer is no. Legitimacy facilitates the retention of power, but is not the sole means of maintaining it. A leader lacking popular support often resorts to repression. No one employs repression when they can rely on popularity. Maintaining a repressive apparatus is costly, and a leader who chooses this path becomes dependent on it. Currently, Putin consistently employs repression. In 2021, when he imprisoned his main political opponent, Alexei Navalny, over 17,000 people were detained. Since the onset of the war, authorities have been imprisoning not only those who openly oppose Putin, but also those who merely advocate for peace over war. The number of political prisoners in Russia runs into the thousands. Alexei Navalny, Putin's primary adversary, was poisoned in a penal colony beyond the Arctic Circle. We recently published an investigation with evidence of this, available via the link in the description. Repression is a hallmark of illegitimacy. A ruler who must constantly resort on it indicates that citizens do not view their authority as lawful, just, or acceptable. Protests met with repression form kind of a pyramid. At the top, there are those willing to protest despite the risk of persecution, supported by a broader layer of passive dissenters. Below them lies even larger group of individuals who disagree with the regime's policies but are either unable to act or too intimidated. When a ruler eliminates opposition leaders, imprisons thousands, detains tens of thousands during protests, and prompts nearly 1 million people to flee the country since the war began, it suggests that the number of those who are in opposition to the regime reaches tens of millions. The visible scale of repression seems to contradict opinion polls, claiming support at 80.8%. High approval ratings are often cited as evidence of legitimacy, as Russian propagandists assert through state-controlled media. However, these figures are falsified. First, major sociological agencies are under complete state control. Second, in a country where Putin's opponents are killed and those elected against his will, such as Governor Furgal, are imprisoned, the only alternatives to Putin in state polls are his hand-picked puppets. Third, Russia lacks free media. The last independent outlets were shut down after the war began. And even cautious statements on social media can lead to years in prison. So we can see that public support can signify a leader's legitimacy only in conditions of free speech. For a leader to be legally legitimate, both their path to power and the way they exercise it must follow the state's laws. Formally, Putin participates in elections in accordance with the law and constitution, creating an appearance of legality. In reality, he has held office for a 5th term, despite the constitution originally limiting presidents to 2 terms. Initially, he employed loopholes, then just rewrote the constitution. Laws were also amended to bar undesirable candidates and create favorable conditions for Putin and his appointees. In 2018, Putin prevented his main rival, Alexei Navalny, from running in the presidential election. And in 2021, he banned anyone who publicly supported Navalny, hundreds of thousands of people, from participating in elections. Elections are entirely falsified and opaque. In the most recent election, authorities added 22 to 31 million votes for Putin's tally. Thus, Putin lacks legal legitimacy as well. When considering moral and ethical markers of legitimacy, such as respect for human rights, transparency, anti-corruption efforts, social justice, and accountability, Putin meets none of these standards. Even in international relations, despite meetings with world leaders like Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, Russia leads globally in the number of international sanctions imposed on it. The country receives no international investment. For example, the European Parliament labeled Putin's elections as a farce aimed at creating the illusion of electoral legitimacy. Taken together, these factors demonstrate that Putin is illegitimate and maintains power solely through domestic repression. This is how he suppresses dissent, imposed censorship, bans social networks like X or Instagram, or obstructs the operation as with YouTube. Repression and falsification enable Putin to construct a system of power that sustains his action. In foreign policy, when Russian diplomats boast of meetings with Donald Trump, they omit that these are not meetings of partners. They are more akin to negotiations with terrorists holding hostages. Putin holds two nations hostage, Ukraine and Russia. Negotiations with hostage takers are always conducted diplomatically. But this does not signify respect or recognition. But why is legitimacy so crucial for Putin? Even an authoritarian regime with a robust repressive apparatus cannot govern a country as vast as Russia solely through force. Identifying and punishing every dissenter demands immense resources. Thus, Putin strives to convince citizens that he rightfully holds power and is legitimate. Each person who acquiesces to his legitimacy reduces the resources he must expend on security forces and repression. These resources are vital for maintaining the loyalty of elites whom he controls through both a carrot and a stick. The propaganda machine aims to persuade citizens that Putin enjoys majority support. This is facilitated by state monopolization of television, internet control, bans of foreign social networks, and falsified polls. Putin's diplomacy serves the same purpose. While the Kremlin's narrative demonizes the West or portrays it as a declining civilization, the regime craves respect from Western capitals, particularly Washington. This serves as a crucial source of legitimacy both domestically and internationally. Putin coerces world leaders into contact through blackmail and deception, securing calls or meetings. This allows him to project to citizens and other nations, "Look, influential leaders recognize me, so you must accept my rule and my growing demands." Putin's legitimacy is a facade devoid of substance. A hostage taker does not command respect or support, even if victims comply. A terrorist negotiated with does not deserve respect, even if dialogue is necessary. Practically, this means one should not play into dictators' hands. The less Putin is recognized as a legitimate leader, the more resources he must expend to maintain power. This limits his capacity to wage the largest war in Europe in the past 80 years. No ruler can hold power indefinitely through force alone. Even the current state of Putin's regime results from a gradual loss of legitimacy and increasing reliance on repression. Anything that underscores his lack of legitimacy hastens the end of his regime and its wars. Subscribe to our channel, where we expose the truth about Vladimir Putin's regime and its methods both domestically and abroad. You can support our work and learn more about us on our website. There we detail how we counter Putin by pursuing his enablers, investigating their activities, and participating in political campaigns and protests within Russia.